Hi, everybody. It's Sallie Wagner, and welcome to the High Frequency Mindset Podcast. I am very pleased to introduce my guest to you today, Tom Harris. Tom, welcome.
Thank you very much, Sallie.
I'm so happy we were able to arrange to talk together today, and I can't wait for you to share with everyone about your business. So just give us a little brief introduction of what you do and some of the people you serve.
Well, I am a business coach, speaker, and author, probably more of an author than a speaker lately, but my tagline or brand or whatever you want to call it is the Contrarian Entrepreneur. And what that means, I have to explain the word contrarian to people because I think sometimes it has a negative connotation, like contrarian means hard to get along with and generally disagreeable and all those things. That's not what it is. It's to put it in simplest terms, is thinking outside the box. It's not listening to everybody else. It's coming up with your own answers and solutions. So
I love that.
I work with mindset a lot. I don't call myself a mindset coach, but that's a lot of what I work with. I came to the conclusion some years back that I think the failure rate for new businesses is maybe not so much due to lack of what we could call hard business skills, but it's not having your head in the right place. And I have yet to meet anybody who was thinking about going into business, pre-launch stage or whatever, who didn't have stars in their eyes. They live on fantasies about how wonderful this is going to be. And then later on, after they've been doing it for a while, they realize, hey, this is not quite as wonderful as I thought it was going to be, hoped it was going to be, and so forth. So that's a short answer to your question.
Yeah, it's definitely not glamorous, right?
No, it's not.
Yeah, and you phrased it perfectly. They do have the stars in their eyes, and they have the dollar signs in their eyes. You know,
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people, I think as soon as they open their business, people are just going to come running to them, and the money's going to come pouring in, and that's not always the case.
Yeah, I'll be able to get my new red Lamborghini within the first year, and
yeah.
No, I don't think so. Might take 2 years.
Right. Yeah. And I hear a lot of other coaches, business coaches and mindset life coaches, who talk about, manifestation. And if you have the right mindset, it's just going to come to you like magic. Right. And it kind of ignores the hard work of what is involved in starting a business, running a business, making a business successful.
Yeah, so I think I understand pretty well why the failure rate of businesses is as high as it is. And I guess if you ask me what my overarching goal is in my business, it's to do whatever I can to somewhat reduce the failure rate.
Yeah, because it can be discouraging when people don't have the right mindset.
Yeah.
So
mindset is a complex subject, by the way, too.
Yes.
And I think most people try to simplify it. Well, all you got to do, if things aren't going quite right, all you got to do is change your mindset. Yeah. Oh, that it were that simple, I have a course that I'm going to be publishing pretty soon called The Human Operating System. And it's about how the human psyche works. And a big chunk of that is about mindset. And there are a long list. I've got like 130 some items that I've listed as mindset factors, things that affect your mindset. And all of these factors are interlinked to each other, and they all affect and are affected by each other theoretically. So the number of combinations of linkages among these factors is like an astronomical number, So anyway.
Absolutely. And that's what I was going to ask you. And you hit it. It is very complex. It's not simplistic the way a lot of people would want you to think. It's not like Peter Pan thinking happy thoughts, right? Yeah. There's a lot more to it than that. And there are a lot of neurochemical components to it. Yeah. So what would you perhaps maybe give us a couple of examples of the components that you've identified?
Well, so like I say, there's a long list of them. Age is something that affects one's mindset, obviously. I'm too young to do this, I'm too old to do this, or whatever. Physical health, mental health, your attitudes, your hobbies, your interests, everything. And it's not just that there are all these factors, there's variations on each of these factors. So if you take interests, for example, well, how many things are there that the person could be interested in? That's an astronomical number in itself, you know. So it's really complex, and I don't think it can be simplified, and I don't think it does anybody any good to try to simplify it.
No.
And I think it does. My theory is that it does help people, or at least can help people, to have some understanding of the complexity of it.
Yes.
Because
Absolutely.
trying to simplify it is just kind of banging your head against the wall.
Yeah, and it gives people unrealistic expectations about what's going to happen.
That is, yeah, that I was going to use that phrase earlier when I was talking about startups. Everybody has unrealistic expectations before they've started a business, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned a program that you're launching soon. What is that going to do? Who is it going to be geared toward?
My ideal client, my only clients, are one-person businesses in service professions. So they provide some kind of a professional service to either individuals or businesses. And the reason I zeroed in on one-person businesses is I am one, and I've been one for a lot of years, although I did have a few employees at one time. And the only thing I learned from that is I don't ever want to have employees again. But I lost my train of thought. Are you going to edit this?
So we were talking about, what's the program and who would it be geared toward? And you told us that.
Well, I would ideally like to work with pre-launch people, who haven't really started yet, because I'd like to be able to hopefully prevent them from making a bunch of stupid mistakes, rather than talking to them after they've made a bunch of stupid mistakes. There's two problems with that, though, is I can identify people who have a business. It's hard to identify the ones who are thinking about it. So, yes. And the other problem there is that the ones that are thinking about it and haven't started, haven't experienced it yet, are the ones with stars in their eyes and the unrealistic expectations, and no, they don't need any help because they've got it all figured out. Just ask them.
Right. Of course. Yeah. Because at that point, it's all theory. They don't have the practice yet.
The other thing about one-person businesses is I believe that one-person businesses have a unique set of issues, which, but if you add an employee, even one employee, it changes a lot in your business. All of a sudden, it's not just you got to worry about someone else. And I think a lot of people think, well, if I can hire a person to help me, well, you have to manage that person. And that reduces the time that you have to work on your business directly, because you're involved with what this other person is doing. And if you're like me, you're looking over their shoulder to make sure they're doing it the way you would have done it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. I was listening to a podcast earlier, and they were talking about that sometimes, unless you have a huge organization like Elon Musk level,
right.
When you're a business owner, sometimes hiring somebody just doubles your workload, doubles your problems. Yeah, it creates all kinds of issues.
Yeah, it doesn't usually turn out the way you theorized that it would.
Yeah. Yeah. And so let's go back to the program you're launching. What kinds of information are you going to be providing, and what's the format that people will be able to access it in?
Well, it's called the Contrarian Entrepreneur Academy, and it has 3 different parts to it. One is a membership program, and the other is just a la carte courses. And the third is a bunch of miscellaneous services, one-on-one coaching and topical coaching and so forth. The membership part, I think, is probably going to be the most interesting part of it. But the way it works in simple terms is that I'm going to have a library of short videos about various topics. Short meaning 3, never more than 10 minutes, hopefully. And I've looked at the subject of self-study, and it doesn't work very well. If you look at the stats for the completion rates of online courses, they're dismal. They're anywhere from 3 to 6%, depending on whose numbers you're looking at. So what I decided to do is to build a couple of other things in there. A member would watch a video, and then we would have a Zoom meeting, a small group Zoom meeting, to discuss the content of that video. And my theory is, and I think I've pretty well proven it to myself, is they can learn more from that group discussion than they learned from watching the video. The video is just the meat for the discussion. And then I'm building in an accountability mechanism into it, so that a Zoom meeting, the first thing that will happen at a Zoom meeting, it goes back to the thing that happened last at the previous meeting, which is you said you were going to do this by the time of the next meeting. So the first question in a meeting is, did you do what you said you were going to do? And if so, how did it turn out? If not, why not? And then we'll go on to the group discussion and some other things. So it's got some features in it that I think will enable people to learn more, and probably more importantly, to be held accountable for doing something with it. You can read all the books in the world, but if you don't do anything with what you learned, then it was all a waste of time.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just theory and philosophy, right?
And nobody's good. I haven't read all those books behind me there either, by the way. That's not a fake background. That's my library.
Yeah, I'm envious of your bookshelves back there. Yeah, I mean, the putting it into practice is such an important piece, and the accountability factor is very important. I mean,
it has to be there, because if you being human, one of the things we do is lie to ourselves a lot.
Yes.
I'm absolutely going to do XYZ by the end of next week. Well, if you don't do XYZ and you didn't tell anybody you were going to, then nobody's going to notice that you didn't do it.
Exactly.
So there's a quote that relates to that. If it's very difficult to be accountable to yourself by yourself.
Yeah, because we give ourselves credit, more credit than we deserve for things, right? And it's kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, I did that. And yet when we have that external accountability, that really dramatically increases our chances of success, up to 76%, as opposed to, like you were saying, self-study on your own. It's at least a 90% failure rate.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's quite a bit more than that, actually.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things I ran into last year sometime was a blog post where the author of the post was saying, I read 100 business books every year. And I'm thinking, how about you read 12 business books a year? And so you have time to do something with what you learned from those books.
Yes.
The more books you read, less time you have to do anything with what you learn. So
exactly. Yeah. A few years ago, I was talking with someone, and she said something similar. She said, last year I met my goal of reading at least 4 business books every month, and I didn't do anything with any of them. So this year my goal is much lower, and it also includes putting it into practice.
Yeah.
You absolutely have to put it into practice. That ties in with my acronym that I coach people on, MSG, mindset, which we've already talked about, skill set. We got to have new skills sometimes. And the G stands for get off your asset. You've got to take action and put it all into practice.
Action is the only thing that creates change.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I am not aligned philosophically with the idea that we create our reality with our thoughts. We create our reality with our actions. It starts with thoughts.
Yeah.
But a thought has to become an idea, has to become an intention, and then you have to take action on it, and that's what creates change.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Yeah. When it's just floating around in here or wherever our thoughts are, that's, nothing happens. So we have to create it multiple times. As you said, we create it in our thoughts, with our intention, and then with our action.
Another thing that I didn't mention about the membership program is there's going to be every member is going to have to maintain a personal idea journal where they basically write down their ideas, whether that idea turned into an intention or not. If it did turn into an intention, did you take action on it, and what was the result of that?
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that I've told people is write down all of your ideas, even the ones you think are bad ones.
Yeah.
A little part of a bad one can turn into a good one, or it can be used somewhere else and combined with something else. And that's really complex too. So
I love that. And it goes back to your whole notion of contrarian, right? To think outside the box.
mm-hmm.
So many times we limit ourselves, we edit ourselves, it's like, oh, that's not a good idea. That will never work. Well, who knows? Just write it anyway. And the more you do that, the more you open yourself up to that flow,
Right.
And you are going to generate the ideas that are going to work.
Mm-hmm. I use an analogy that ideas are kind of like Legos. If you just got a few pieces, you can build a few things, but if you got a lot of pieces, you can build a lot of things and bigger things.
Yes.
So I don't know that there's such a thing as having too many ideas. I mean, there's only a certain, if you've got a lot of ideas, there's only a certain number of them that you even have time to do anything with.
Right.
But at least you have an assortment of ideas that you can go through and say, I think I'm going to do something with that one.
Mm-hmm.
That one seems to me right now to be a really good one. So.
Right. And how many times, I'm sure we've all had this experience, how many times have we had an idea that leads to another idea? And it's just that whole sequence of opening yourself up, opening your mind up to let the ideas flow.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to ask you one more question. I mentioned MSG, and all of those concepts are very important, right? Mindset, we've talked about, skill set. You're teaching people new skills. Sometimes we have to have a new skill set to get the right mindset, and we have to have the new skill set to take the right action.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the importance of action. So what is, perhaps pick one overarching principle that you could point to in your life and your business, and you could say, yeah, that really was helpful to me in my success?
Well, I can do that pretty easily. That's the idea that what worked for somebody else will not work the same for you.
Yeah.
You are unique, and your business is a reflection of you. Therefore, your business is unique. Therefore, you're going to have to find answers and solutions that are unique to you, that fit you. And the source of those is not external. It doesn't exist in somebody else's coaching program. It doesn't exist in books or videos. It's within you to come up with your own answers and solutions, because they're the ones that will ultimately work best for you.
Yeah.
Because they are unique. I mean, you might come up with some answers and solutions that aren't very good ones, and we'll all do that from time to time. But there's just too many people that wait for the answers and solutions to be handed to them on a silver platter, and it doesn't happen. It doesn't work that way. So look for the answers inside of yourself, from your own experiences and from your own mindset, I guess. And that's the key part of it. So,
yeah.
and
I love that.
That notion is a little bit outside the mainstream.
It is. Yeah, because we hear so many, going back, and we can all name the experts. Well, just do what they did and you'll be successful.
Oh,
No,
that
not
makes me
necessarily.
crazy, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
There's more than one guru out there. I won't name names. I said, well, look at successful people and do what they do,
yeah.
which, if I may be so brash, is just one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. You know, it makes no difference what somebody else did. That has nothing to do with you
Yeah,
because you are unique.
exactly.
There are patterns, there are probabilities that, a whole bunch of people did something kind of like that and it worked well for them. Okay, that's a pattern, that's a probability, but
Mhm.
it's not a certainty.
No,
So,
no.
and unfortunately,
And
too many people are looking for certainties, and there aren't very many of those in existence.
right. It just comes back to that hard work that we have to do, and not to discourage anyone, but that's the reality of it, right? That you can certainly reach out to other people for guidance, ideas, suggestions, um, signposts along the way to kind of guide you on the path. And yet
But
ultimately it comes down to, how do you internalize the information and make it your own?
right, but treat those things that you get from other people as just that, suggestions,
Yeah,
ideas, again, probabilities, but don't take them as, oh, if you just follow these 27 steps, you will get XYZ result.
yeah,
No, you won't. You might be lucky and get something close to it, but probably it won't be very close.
right. Yeah, and it goes back to the unique nature of everyone, the unique nature of everyone's mindset, because yeah, I'm sure you've seen these studies. Mindset is so crucial to the outcome, and why we do things and what our motivation is when we do things. That's going to determine the outcome, and
Mhm.
we can't always duplicate somebody else's mindset.
Well, you absolutely can't duplicate somebody else's
Yeah,
mindset.
yeah,
Um, there's just too many variables there,
yeah.
and you in your mindset. um, a couple of authors that I know of have talked about the idea of fixed mindset versus growth mindset,
Hmm.
and that's a terrible oversimplification. It's not one or the other, for starters. Uh, you're somewhere on a spectrum between growth and fixed.
Right,
And
right.
there's actually, to my way of thinking, there's really no such thing as a fixed mindset, because it's changing all the time,
Mhm.
based on, again, a whole bunch of different variables. Um, and you have mindsets about different things. You have a mindset about your business, and you probably have a mindset about different aspects of your business, and you've got a mindset about everything else going on in your life. And it really is crazy complex.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely it is. Well, I always enjoy talking with you. I'm glad that you were able to get this on your schedule. And how can people get in touch with you?
Well, they can go to my website, tomharris.us, not something else, .us. And you can email me at tom@tomharris.us, or you can call me on the telephone at 877-901-9977.
Perfect. We
And
always forget that the phones are for calls as well as all the other stuff we do on them, right?
you can find me on Alignable. I am big on Alignable.
Yes, and that's how we met, on Alignable.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
perfect.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to put all of your contact information in the show notes. So everyone who's listening, please check out the show notes and you can get in touch with Tom in that way.
Okay.
Thank you again so much for
Thank
being
you.
here with me today.
I appreciate it.
Yes, and thank you everyone for listening in. I will talk with you again soon.
Okay.